Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Also brought to you in part by Filthy Games Room, located off Newtown Boulevard, 3479 Newtown Boulevard, to be exact, in St. Charles, Missouri, where you can get all of your retro and modern games needs. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is a scorching hot Wednesday night, June 12th, 2024. It is the 90th episode, believe it or not, of Roundabout Sports. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Karp. Thank you for everybody that's tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, on X. I do want to say you can also find us on Spotify, on Google Podcast, well, until Google Podcast, not anymore, on iTunes, on Breaker, and so many more places. Currently, the Cardinals right now are facing off against the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Cardinals lost a heartbreaker last night. Miles Michaelis had a perfect game going into the sixth inning. Or had a no hitter going into the sixth inning. Lost both. Um, and the Cardinals lost 2-1 in what was a very close matchup. And taking a look at this team, there's a lot more fight in them than what we saw earlier on in the season. So I definitely do commend the Cardinals for that. And I will say, though, I will give this. Miles Michaelis has had a rough start to his season, but in his last 6 starts, he's pitched 36 innings, 5 quality starts. So 5 out of the last 6 have been quality starts. Just a 3.00 ERA, 27 strikeouts, and only 8 walks. It's a vast improvement for the 35-year-old. So I'm very happy with the way things have improved for him. I also want to promote a couple books that we have here. First off, it's of course by our friend, the good Dr. Jeremy Housewright. That being For the Love of the Show, Pro Wrestling Fans Tell Their Stories. I've had the pleasure of reading this. In fact, if anything, I've also had the pleasure of having this being a signed copy. Definitely a lot of great stories. It made me reminisce about when I first started becoming a professional wrestling fan so many years ago. So I'm very grateful for Jeremy to get his book, get his stories, and the stories of so many others out there. Also, I want to give a book shout out to the great Ed Wheatley, one of my dearest friends. St. Louis Sports Memories, Forgotten Teams, and Moments from America's Best Sports Town. And you can find that on retail shelves everywhere. A fantastic book, talking about the Spirits, the Browns, the Hawks, and so many football Cardinals, so many more, you know. And it's interesting that recently one of there's only 3 surviving St. Louis Browns players. And one of them, in fact, Ed Mickelson is one of them. He is turning 98 this September. He drove in the final run in St. Louis Browns history on September 27th of 1953, the final season. So that said, we're going to keep it going with some breaking news here. Once again, now be sure, folks, next week we're going to have Tyler Cooley tune in or join us as a guest. I'm absolutely excited for that. If you want to be on the show, if you want to be a guest, be sure to just shoot me a DM or comment it below. We'll send you a link to get you on board. I do want to say, though, today we do have some sad news to report, and that is that basketball legend Jerry West has passed away at the age of 86. Now, for those that don't know, who may not know who Jerry West is, he is a basketball legend, a Hall of Famer. He even got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. His nicknames include Mr. Outside, Zeke from Cabin Creek, Mr. Clutch, and believe it or not, more famously, he is actually known as Mr. Logo. Now, you may be wondering why, or the logo, I should say. You may be wondering why. Well, the silhouette of Jerry West is actually the NBA logo. So whenever you see the logo for the National Basketball Association, it is actually the silhouette of the late great Jerry West. I do think that's an amazing touch that they had, being able to honor somebody so integral to the game like that. And he was a 10-time All-NBA first team. He was a 2-time All-NBA second team, an NBA champion, a Finals MVP, and a 14-time All-Star, a member of both the 35th, the 50th, and the 75th NBA anniversary teams. Very, very well liked throughout the NBA. And he also was named eventually general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers, where the Lakers won 6 championship rings from 1980 through 2000, as well as 2 more in 2015 and 2017. And he was a 2-time NBA Executive of the Year. And of course, we got to add, he was also a 2-time gold medal. He was a 1-time gold medalist at the Olympic Games and a gold medalist at the Pan American Games. So Jerry West, the late great Jerry West, passing away at the age of 86. He will dearly be missed. Now we're going to switch gears into the world of the UFL, and this one's going to hurt my heart to say, because I was hyped up for the Battlehawks last week. They went into the XFL Conference Championship game against the San Antonio Brahmas after beating them the week before, and they absolutely crapped the bed. They lost 25-15, ending their season. With that, San Antonio will be facing Birmingham for the UFL Championship at the Dome at America Center. Now, this has created a lot of interesting conversations between sports fans. I say that because right now you have St. Louis obviously had the biggest crowd. St. Louis had the biggest average fan base for per attendance this season. They averaged 34,000 fans. A lot of teams were lucky to break 10,000 on a weekly basis. To have this game in St. Louis and not have the St. Louis Battlehawks in it is a real buzzkill. Not just for St. Louis fans, but honestly, I think for UFL executives, because it would bring so much more attention. Because now you got a lot of fans who had tickets already for the game that don't want to go there because the Battlehawks aren't in it. Just think of your home city hosting a championship event that your team is not involved in. It's probably something that you wouldn't be too fond of. Now, I know a lot of people that are still planning on going. It also affects a lot of people's schedules because it is Father's Day this upcoming Sunday. So I do know that there's a lot that goes into everything. But it was a great season. Yeah, it sucks that the Battlehawks are no longer in the playoffs. It sucks they're not going to be in the championship game, but it was still a really good season. I do think there are some big takeaways, though. Number one, get a new offensive coordinator. Bruce Gradkowski is not the guy for the Battlehawks. His very conservative play calling, worse than my play calling in Madden, and that says something. Definitely very conservative. Too many dump offs, too many screen passes, too many inside runs, even if it's if it's first and long or second and long. So I definitely feel that the Battlehawks can do much better as far as offensive coordinator goes. I think Anthony Beck should stay as head coach. He may not be the most qualified head coach that you could get out there, but he brings a great amount of passion and energy to the franchise, to the city, and I think that's great. I think that's one thing they definitely need. And then here comes a hot take that a lot of people may or may not agree with me on. They need a new quarterback. AJ McCarron, look, this is the thing. They squeaked by the Brahmas in the final week of the regular season. They squeaked by. In 2024, McCarron had a 6-2 record. He threw for 1,582 yards, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks. 75 rushing yards and a touchdown as well. He had a 64% completion percentage. The thing of it is, all of those stats are drops from last year. Granted, he did play in an extra game, but still, last year he went 6-3, had over 2,100 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. And on top of all of that, last year, AJ McCarron was the passing touchdown leader, the completion percentage leader, and the passer rating leader. But to me, his reads are very one-dimensional. If the first guy isn't open, he's not going to really try to drag it out and try to make another play out of something. He's either going to give himself up or he's just going to, I don't know. I really don't know. There was a lot of what is wrong with the Bruce Grodkowski and AJ McCarron duo was exposed last week in the XFL Conference Championship. And yeah, AJ McCarron is a good quarterback. I think he's a solid quarterback, but I don't think he's the one would lead the Battlehawks to the XFL champion, or I'm sorry, to the UFL championship game. That's just my opinion. I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts. Now, I do know folks like the good doctor himself say that the UFL is not going to have a second season, or I guess, yeah, the UFL won't have a second season. I firmly believe they will. I think that there was still a lot of positives coming out of this season as for the league as a whole, enough to warrant having another season. And right now we're heading in the bottom of the second, folks. To give a quick baseball score update, and the Cardinals and Pirates are at 0 apiece. But the ace Sonny Gray is on the mound. But back to the whole thing with the Battlehawks. Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed though by, once again, Hakeem Butler. And the thing of it is now is with teams like Jaguars and the Panthers giving him looks in the NFL, he might not be back with the Battlehawks come next season. So he was named to the 2024 All-UFL team. He led the league in receiving. I'm taking a look at Hakeem Butler, and I say to myself, first off, he's 6'6". He was misused a lot of times by the offense. He has great speed. He can obviously have great vertical and get up to moss over corners for the ball. And when you have speedsters like Aitman and Darius Shepard on the outside, draw away the corners of the other side of the defense, you can get Butler wide open. But no, unfortunately, that's not the way it is. And I felt like the offense just sputtered the entire game on Sunday. Defense got worn out, and they gave up way too many big plays. And ultimately, it came back to hurt the Battlehawks, and it cost them the season. And I will also say the play calling at the end of the game, yes, there was less than 2 minutes to go, but you kick a field goal, and then you can invoke the rule where you have a chance to go for it on 4th and 12, which is the equivalent of the onside kick. So you go for it on 4th and 12. Let's say you get the ball back. Okay, great. Now you have a chance to score a touchdown. Suddenly, you can tie the damn game up. But no, they decided to just do little dump-off passes and short slants, get down the field, and they don't even end up scoring a touchdown before time expires. They just end up losing the game. So it was a frustrating end to the season. I know before you know it, it'll be college season, NFL season. So we're going to have plenty to talk about there in the coming weeks as more gets rolled out. Oh, I do like, first off, my dear friend Dylan, first off, congratulations to him and his wife Morgan on the birth of their baby daughter, their first child. Big mazel tov to both of them. But it's funny, he says it's because of the people sitting behind us. Now, I guess I have to explain the story of that, and that's because my friends and I, being season ticket holders, had to deal with some unruly people behind us all season long. And finally, tensions boiled over. Thankfully, they didn't throw any punches or anything. So we got through a full season without fighting. That's for damn sure. But definitely could have done without their attitude. And the bright side is they might not even sit by us next season, which would make it so much better. But I'll tell you this, we damn sure are going to get our same season ticket spots. So if anyone's going to move, it is going to be them. But yes, it brings back memories thinking back on, oh God, I can't believe that. So it was a heartbreaking loss for the Battlehawks. But to continue our football news, the cover has been released for NFL Madden 2025, or Madden 25, if you want to call it. I almost feel like I have to say Madden 2025 just because they've already done a Madden 25 game. And the recipient of the honor of the cover is none other than San Francisco 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian McCaffrey was considered one of the MVP favorites last year. It's been about almost 14 years since a running back won MVP, but last year he finished with an average of 5.4 yards a carry, 14 touchdowns, almost 1,500 rushing yards. Now, keep in mind, that's just rushing. Receiving yardage, last year he had 67 receptions, 564 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Absolutely phenomenal having McCaffrey on there. To me, it was either going to be between him or Justin Jefferson, the star wide receiver on the Minnesota Vikings. But McCaffrey's a great choice. He's a safe choice and a great choice. But in comes the issue of, is the Madden curse going to strike the 49ers? Yes, the Madden curse, something that has been around for so long, and only on a couple occasions has it not affected the player. I can tell you, growing up as a kid, practically every time it did affect the player that was on the cover. And ironically enough, Patrick Mahomes is one of the players that it didn't affect. But that's just because Patrick Mahomes is on a whole nother level when it becomes time to talk about football quarterbacks. Speaking about the Kansas City Chiefs, it's been quite the interesting offseason for them. But in a more positive spin on things, like I said, I feel like over the past few weeks when we've had to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs on here, I feel like I've always had to say bad news. Whether it's something Rashee Rice did, something that happened to Xavier Worthy, a player getting hurt, doing something off the field, stupid. Andy Reid's son getting a slap on the wrist, getting away with, DWI. But nevertheless, here's some positive news. The Chiefs' Chris Jones, the all-pro defensive lineman, says that he's aiming for 20 sacks this season. The sky's the limit. On top of that, he wants to he was discussing the end of his career because he, as well as Travis Kelce, this future Hall of Fame tight end, both Chris Jones is 29. Travis Kelce is 35. And a lot of folks have been asking them about potential retirement. Well, Travis Kelce had spoken to reporters about it, saying he wants the same workload, if not a bigger workload this year. He wants to continue to be that workhorse for the franchise, which I think is absolutely crucial for Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal that he's still in great enough shape as a football player in his mid-30s to be able to even want to take that type of workload. Now, Chris Jones this offseason signed a 5-year extension to stay with the Chiefs. His plan, as well as Kelce's, is to stick with Kansas City for the rest of his career. So, yeah, he thinks Travis Kelce's going to play 4 more years, whereas, Whereas for Chris Jones, he wants to play another 6 or 7 years. That's what he's aiming for. But he refuses to let Travis Kelce go while he's on his contract. So thank the good Lord for that. I am very happy because, look, Chris Jones is one of the best to do it in the NFL in the past 10 years, and Travis Kelce is one of, if not the greatest tight end in NFL history. There's few that can be compared to him. And look, I know people are going to say because since he's getting older, there's tight ends in the league that are better than him. But let me put it to you this way. Including the injuries that he suffered last year, Travis Kelce still put a phenomenal season together. Okay? How great was it? Well, let me put it to you this way. Travis Kelce last year he played in 16 games. He played in 15. He started in 15. He had 93 catches for 984 receiving yards, as well as 5 touchdowns. The 5 touchdowns were a big drop from the 12 he had last year and the year before when he had 9. But still averaged 10.6 yards a catch. Only 1 fumble all season long, folks. It's elite at its finest. So that's how I look at it for Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, he has a multitude of records: most career postseason catches, most career postseason touchdowns by a tight end, most seasons with 1,000 receiving yards by a tight end, consecutive 1,000 receiving yards by a tight end, receiving yards in a season by a tight end. Basically, most tight end records he has. And he is also tied for the games with most receiving yards of 100 or more yards in the playoffs with 8. So, arguably fantastic. Too shabby from a guy that went to Cincinnati University to be a quarterback. Pretty good, if you ask me. So, folks, while we're here on Roundabout Sports, I want to take a moment to talk about our lovely sponsor, Filthy Games Room. Filthy Games Room is located at 3479 Newtown Boulevard in St. Charles, Missouri. They are open from Wednesday through Saturday, 12 to 8. I will tell you, if you are looking for video games from pretty much every era, they have stuff ranging from the Odyssey back in the early 70s, Atari, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube, all the Segas, all the Nintendos, all the PlayStations, TurboGrafx 16, you know, it runs the gamut for them. And if you don't believe me, and also I want to say they have a ginormous slew of arcade machines that are free to play in the front lobby. They also have the largest collection of video games in the St. Louis metropolitan area. They have a great value of video games and more. You can also join their patron program where you can get up to 10% off all video game purchases. Go in there and talk to Ben Bizzle or Scott or Isaac or Ari or Jacob, all fantastic dear friends dedicated to their craft. You can also go in and get your consoles and games looked at for repairs and cleaning. Service charge may be applied. So definitely head on out there. It is a place you don't want to miss. Honestly, it just makes me feel like a kid again. And I have so much fun being there, sharing stories, shooting the breeze. They also let you test out games that you want to buy. So please keep that in mind, folks. I am telling you right now, you do not want to miss your chance of going to this fantastic store, because when they go to conventions, the store might be closed for a couple days. But they are fantastic. They're all around. Great staff, great prices, great deal. So Filthy Games Room at 3479 Newtown Boulevard in St. Charles, Missouri. I want to thank everybody tuning in so far. It's been a nice 90th episode. It's been crazy we've done 90 episodes. I've had the pleasure of interviewing guests ranging from Ray King to Toyoka Jackson, Kenny Strode, Bob Underwood, Taylor Michelle Coleman, of course, having my great hosts, Ryan K. Bowman and Hollywood James Knox, who is working hard every day to get his personal things back in order to come back to the show. So definitely keep an eye on that. And mark it down. I am pretty sure, folks, I did the math right, that August 21st, 2024, the 100th episode of Roundabout Sports. Now, unless I decide in that time span to start doing multiple shows per week, which maybe I'll do after the 100th episode. But right now, August 21st, 2024 will be the special 100th episode of Roundabout Sports. It'll be a lot bigger than this. Right now, it's me just tonight. I know a lot of people were busy, had prior commitments, and I have no problem with that. It's always great just being on here, shooting the breeze with all of you wonderful folks that are tuning in. I can tell we got a lot of great fans tuning in on X, on our YouTube channels, and on the Facebook pages, whether it be with Interstate 70 Sports Media or with Roundabout Sports or at my personal X account. So definitely Greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Now, I want to talk one thing about another interesting thing that happened just a few years ago today. 5 years ago today, the St. Louis Blues won their very first Stanley Cup. And man, you know what? I want to tell you a story about that, folks. So 5 years ago, on June 12th, I remember it because my dad was he was pretty sick that night. He had like 102-degree fever. And he was going to go to sleep. He did not feel good. He didn't want to watch. He wanted to watch the game, but he just wasn't feeling good. So he goes to bed. What ends up happening, Blues score a goal early on. Then he's like, you know what? Okay, I'll maybe stay up. Blues score second goal. He's like, okay, yeah, there's no way I can miss this. And he said, screw it. He sat through, watched the rest of the game. We listened to it on on 101 ESPN. I'm telling you, it was fantastic. So it was just a moment I will never forget. I remember calling my late grandma, or my late grandma called me, and she told me she was excited they did it, but she didn't think they could do it because she was always, God bless her soul, she was always a pessimistic fan. If it didn't go perfect, she said, screw it. But this city it meant so much to this city of St. Louis to hoist that cup, to see it finally happen for us after so many close calls, after so much heartbreak, after a drought that went on that spanned generations. And you always wanted more. So, of course, now that you know you can win the cup, you really want the Blues to win the cup. A lot of those players are gone as far as off the team. There's not a whole lot of St. Louis Blues players left on this team that were on the team when they won the Stanley Cup back in 2019. I also remember the parade. I did not go to the parade for the Stanley Cup because it was my friend Jacob's wedding with his awesome wife, Kayla. Now, let's face it, if it was anything other than a wedding, I probably would have been at the parade, but I'm not going to miss one of my bros' weddings. So that was it was a fantastic occasion. It was great watching the replay of the parade. And of course, that's when Brett Hull decided to get absolutely shit-faced drunk, yelling, "We went Blues." So be sure to just reminisce for a moment and take in the fact that the St. Louis Blues 5 years ago today did what nobody thought they could do that season, let alone any season. And they hoisted Lord Stanley and they brought it to the Gateway City, which meant we became the 8th city in this country to win 4 major sports titles with 4 professional sports teams, like 4 different professional sports teams championships. Because believe it or not, for those that don't know, the Hawks won the NBA title back in finals back in 1959. So yeah, I definitely am looking forward to seeing that history continue when the Blues end up winning the Stanley Cup again. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in so far. I want to talk about the Good Doctor's book, For the Love of the Show. Pro wrestling fans tell their stories. I've asked him in the past if he plans on doing another book, and he's definitely talked about consideration for it. But this is what I love. You know, here's just an example. We're going to go to chapter 10 and talk about from a fan to a wrestler. You know, it's talking about all the stories that he's gotten from fans who love professional wrestling, how much it means to them, and why why they are a part of this. So, oh, wait a minute. I'm getting a breaking news. Hang on 1 second, folks. The St. Louis Cardinals have taken the lead. Paul Goldschmidt, a 2-out single, and Nolan Arenado, a 2-out double. And the Cardinals strike first here in St. Louis against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'll gladly take it. And shout out to the amazing guys at the Wrestle Talk podcast, which you can catch every Tuesday night. You want to talk about a special occasion coming up? You're just about 10, 15 weeks away from episode 500 of the Wrestle Talk podcast. And I remember when it was fairly young, fairly new, and here they are just a few weeks away from the big 500. It airs every Tuesday night on StreamYard, just like we air Roundabout Sports. You can catch them on Facebook, on X, on YouTube as well. Just search Wrestle Talk Podcast. And use the hashtag Let's Talk Wrestling. Last night, we had the pleasure of actually talking with Sky De Lacrimosa, who is a renowned wrestler in deathmatch wrestling. I'm going to tell you right now, folks, if you don't know what deathmatch wrestling is, it is its own unique. I don't have video of deathmatch wrestling, but I definitely have. I've called the deathmatch when Lenny Mephisto took on Akira. I almost said Nick Gage. God forbid if Lenny ever faces Nick Gage. But here, I guess I will. I'll show a picture of a death match just to give you all amazing folks here tuning in an idea of just what you would expect if you watched it. So, parental warning, if any children or somebody you think should not be seeing this are watching, this is graphic, so you might look away for a little bit. There's a lot of blood, a lot of weapons used, flaming tables, glass, light bulbs, the big tubes of light bulbs. So, yeah, most definitely it is its own special breed. And I know a lot of people may think of it as just garbage wrestling, but the amount of skill it takes to wrestle a death match I could never even imagine being in that world. It's like its own unique world. So big kudos to everybody that takes part in that. Big shout out to Sky De Lacrimosa last night for the amazing interview on Wrestle Talk. And Gabriel Arsene, happy belated birthday. I said happy birthday to you last night about 15 times. So big shout out to all the folks that tune in there. Also, I am officially saying it. And I'm glad this is one of those times where I'm glad I have the floor to myself. Because it is something that needs to be said. We have here the St. Louis Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame. And some of the best of the best when it comes to pro wrestling are in the Hall of Fame. Hang on 1 second okay, there we go. But you know what? There is one guy who is not in the Hall of Fame. And it frustrates me to no end. First off, I want to say congratulations to Extreme Kimchi, to Winona Littleheart, Spike Huber, Lunatic Max, Moondog Rover, who's is a good friend of mine, Mr. Bibbs, Lacey, Judge Tough Love, Johnny Jett, Chaz Wesson, Chris Jiken, Dump Truck Perry, Rockin' Al Bowman, all on being announced as the class of 2024 inductees into the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. Now, like I said, Luke Roberts, you may not know the face, but you probably know the name. You might not know the name, but you might know the face. Luke Roberts has been in professional wrestling for 40 years. I'm going to say it right now. If it wasn't for Luke Roberts, I wouldn't be in professional wrestling. I wouldn't have done the amazing work I did with Dynamo Pro. I wouldn't have done the work I've been doing with Pro Wrestling Epic. I wouldn't have had a lot of great chances come my way if it was not for Luke Roberts. And, you know, a lot of people will ask me, you know, what does it take for somebody to be in this Hall of Fame? Well, when I look at it, I mean, you would think of somebody that has contributed a lot to the history of St. Louis pro wrestling, which I think is a fair enough judgment. Well, this gentleman has been a referee. He's been a ring announcer, a commentator. You know, he has been a wrestler. When I was with Dynamo Pro, he was the first person I did commentary with. You know, and this is my thing. So I want to say a few things about my good friend Luke Roberts. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. Because a lot of people feel the same way. He's had experience in almost every aspect of pro wrestling. Okay. He's helped me into growing and expanding the Wrestle Talk podcast. I will say that he's made me a lot more self-confident in myself and in my abilities as a commentator. I could go on about all the different promotions he's worked with. And I could go on about all the different, things he has, done as well. And the thing of it is, when you've been in the business long enough like me, you have so many different documents and things of that nature for me, to where sometimes it's just hard to put into words. So I do want to take a second. I know I'm kind of rambling. I'm kind of getting off topic. And that's what happens when you trust a guy with ADHD. But I'm going to do my damnedest to advocate for Luke Roberts to be inducted into the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I'm going to do it to the very best of my ability, with the knowledge of Luke's career and with how long I have been, working with him in my profession. So I first met Luke Roberts back in about 2014, actually. We were messaging each other on Facebook. This is when I was starting out with the Jeremy Karp Show. And, he and I interviewed. I had the pleasure of interviewing him. I had the pleasure of interviewing Brandon Aarons, a dear friend of mine as well. for Dynamo Pro Wrestling. He invited me down to the Stratford Inn where they were setting up for a Dynamo Pro show. I had the pleasure of meeting Jim down there and Chris Rodell. And Luke and I just shot the breeze. We talked about so many things pro wrestling. And I learned that Luke has been an encyclopedia basically for professional wrestling. I look at his career and I look at the fact that he has influenced hundreds of professional wrestlers. He's entertained thousands of wrestling fans. His voice has been lent to hundreds of matches that you can find on YouTube, that you can find in the archives of promotions. He's a lifetime member of the Cauliflower Alley Club, which is an esteemed group for professional wrestling. He is at almost every professional wrestling convention. He has put his heart and soul and his body into this business. Luke could have retired years ago. I just want to make it clear. He could have retired years ago from professional wrestling, and nobody would have batted an eye. Nobody would have said a bad word about him because there would have been no reason to. Every time I talk to him, I mean, he's one of my most closest confidants. He's somebody that I trust with almost everything in my career and in my life, because of the fact that, you know, he is just that type of personable guy. And, you know, I have no reason to do this. I have no, as far as gaining. I'm not getting paid to say this. I'm not getting an award for saying this. I'm not getting any extra credit or anything for saying any of this. Personally, I feel that if you're in the St. Louis metro area and you've spent 40 years putting your blood, sweat, and tears into this industry, it deserves to get recognized in the utmost way. And, you know, the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame is full of esteemed members of our industry. And the only reason I can say our industry is because of Luke Roberts. My first Dynamo Pro show was back in, the first one as a commentator was back in, I want to say 2021. And like I said, I've been going to those shows since 2016. But 2021 was my first show as a commentator. And he introduced me to that locker room and made me feel like I was already part of the family. And I couldn't thank him enough for that. And I never can. I'll never be able to thank Luke enough for everything. And there's still so much he wants to do. He wants to go to the Tokyo Dome to see Wrestle Kingdom. And I know WrestleMania is always on his bucket list. And God, I don't blame him on that. But I'm reaching out here. I don't know if this segment will be separated from the rest of the show, and I hope Luke hears it. Because sometimes for a guy that never knows how to shut the hell up, sometimes I'm left a little speechless as far as how much a person means to you. But I do hope that sooner rather than later, and I hope it happens in general, that Luke Roberts gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. Because to me, there's nobody better that represents what it truly means to be actively involved in wrestling in every possible aspect. Look, I'm telling you, ring crew, commentator, ring announcer, referee, backstage producer, creative control, wrestler. Hell, I guarantee you he's done catering and concessions and snacks and things like that before too. Everything that you could possibly think of doing in professional wrestling, I'm pretty damn confident Luke has done it at some point or another. So I want to, and I'm going to break kayfabe here. His real name is Robert Mangrum, and I think that he should be inducted into the St. Louis Independent Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. That is my final statement on the matter. I do hope those at the Hall of Fame take this message with deep consideration. I'd love to have representatives from the Hall of Fame on the show. Nothing but the utmost respect, love, and care. This is just me advocating for somebody that I consider family, who I feel has never gotten the recognition he deserves. And I do think at this point in his career, it's about damn time. So that's what I have to say about that. With that, folks, I want to wrap up the 90th episode here of Roundabout Sports. First, I want to spend one more time talking about Filthy Games Room because they are such a fantastic place. A big stress reliever, that is for sure. And you can go there at 3479 Newtown Boulevard in St. Charles, Missouri. That's Filthy Games Room Buy Sell Trade, one of the largest, if not the largest, collection of retro and modern video games spanning every console that's come out practically in the past 40 plus years. They just got in, for example, a sealed Magnavox Odyssey 2 console. Now, I don't know who all watches the show that remembers the Magnavox Odysseys. I happen to have one from 1976, and it's crazy that the thing is sealed and never been used. But once again, I digress. You can also join their Patreon program, where you can get up to 10% off all purchases. Ben Bizzle is a fantastic guy who runs it. This is his dream of running a video game shop, and it's become a reality. He's put his own stuff into this store, and it started from nothing, and it's become fantastic. I have seen this place grow. I've met some amazing people. I've seen Ari, I've seen Jacob, Scott, Isaac. I'm happy for how well it's thrived, and I highly recommend anybody who can check it out, go there and do so. They are open from 12 to 8 Wednesdays through Saturdays. And if you go to video game conventions frequently, be sure to check them out. They are usually regular attendees. Be sure to check out Roundabout Sports on Facebook. Be sure to check out Interstate 70 Sports Media on Facebook and on YouTube and on X. And you can find me personally on Facebook and on X as well. Also, be sure to check out every week Issues with Wrestling with Christopher Miles and Jared Shannon. Be sure to check out the Bar and Media Group with Chad Lynch. And, you know, I'm just very thankful for everybody that's been tuning in and staying loyal all these past 90 episodes. We've had a lot of great fun, a lot of great guests, but don't think we're slowing down anytime soon. If anything, we're going to have to start ramping things up because, once again, mark it down on your calendars. August 21st, 2024 is the date of episode 100. How the hell I got to 100 episodes is beyond me, but somehow we've gotten the countdown. So also, as always, we put on the screen at the end of the show the NAMI helpline. For NAMI, you dial 1-800-950-NAMI, 1-800-950-NAMI. It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the largest grassroots mental health organization in the nation, dedicated to building better lives for those who struggle. And of course, we put up the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at the end of the show. For that, you dial 988. The line is open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand you're never alone in this world. There's always somebody out there who loves you and cares about you, and you are just we all go through struggles on a daily basis, but none of them need to be struggles that are dealt with alone. And please be sure to understand that you're just a phone call, a text message, or an email away, um, because you are loved. So be sure to tune in next week at 7 o'clock Central as we have Tyler Cooley joining us on Roundabout Sports. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Karp, and remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. Good night, everybody.